In today's video, we're going to be diving into the very action-packed upcoming pattern. It is going to be absolutely crazy, and it's funny, every single video for like the past 5 has been almost the same, but I feel like there's always something new. We've been kind of escalating with every video, and it stays the same. It stays true in today's video as well, especially the GFS model here. We're going to see multiple threats at snowfall over the coming 15 days, and it shouldn't come as a surprise. We are expecting for things to be cold enough for that entire 15-day period, really, I mean, for the most part. But the lacking thing has been the storms moving through. But I knew that if any storm systems came along, they would be a threat because, again, the cold air is in place. These storms like to follow the jet stream, and we're in a very favorable pattern. We're going to be seeing this today. We'll be looking at the major cooldowns. We have a snowstorm coming up literally just tomorrow into Friday. And we have finally gotten that agreement from the models. And sure enough, it's been the GFS model folding to the European model, as we've been stating over and over and over again. I've always thought that the GFS model was coming northward. I've had a lot of complaints, not a lot, I shouldn't say, like 1 or 2 probably over the past few days, and I want to address it because I think it's so important for me to put this in the beginning of the video where everybody gets to hear it. But when I'm talking about the snowfall totals on the maps here, I'm not telling you my opinion. What I'm telling you is what the model is showing. And I will add my opinion in there sometimes. But, you know, some people were like, you were calling for like a foot of snowfall in Philadelphia. And I want you to know that I never was trying to portray that that was what I thought was going to happen. We just go over the raw model guidance with you guys, break it down. I will throw my 2 cents in every once in a while, but I like bringing the raw information to the people as well. I think it's very important for people to be able to decipher the information for themselves, and I love doing what I do. So just wanted to put that out there. And, you know, I've mentioned the biases with the GFS model again, that it tends to put things a little too far south. So I do add important, crucial information like that can be helpful, such as this situation where it's been very helpful. So let's just take a look at what's going to be happening later on today. And really, as we work our way towards 1 a.m. tonight, Eastern, we already have snowfall starting out for the Ohio Valley, like Illinois, kind of the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, into northern Pennsylvania and southeast or southwestern New York, better yet. So snowfall is already starting. Our low is nearby the Smoky Mountains here, and colder air is rapidly moving in with this system. So this is our current setup. And again, this did not look like this a couple of days ago on the GFS model, but this looks identical to what the European model has been showing for days now with this system. So the European model gets an A+ from me. It's done a great job of holding strong with what's basically expected to happen now the whole way through, whereas the GFS model is going to have to get an F because it's been bouncing around way too far south most of the time. And the GFS model's been great this year, but this is a perfect example that, you know, you can be right 10 times in a row and then be completely wrong, and then the one that's been wrong a lot of times can be completely right. So that's why we show both every single time. I think it's a great way to do things. Another question I get all the time is this Eastern time right here? I don't know if you can see the underlining, but it's going to be on the top right corner of your screen. And yes, it is Eastern time. So that is Eastern time there. Now, let's go ahead and move towards the overnight hours into the morning. This is going to be approximately 10 a.m. Thanksgiving morning tomorrow. I'm really excited for Thanksgiving, and I just want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. I will be uploading a video tomorrow as well, but if you don't catch that video, I just wanted to say I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, despite the nasty weather around the east where most of my viewers live. A lot of these areas in here experiencing snowfall for the day tomorrow, and actually quite heavy snowfall for northern Pennsylvania, most of New York State, especially upstate, except for the city, which I guess is most of the population of New York State, but, you know, the most land area of New York is going to be seeing heavy snowfall. Vermont as well, especially the South, New Hampshire, same story, and then the Berkshires here of Massachusetts. So definitely areas along the mountain ranges of West Virginia and some areas there in Ohio seeing some snow showers as well. And this low is going to be right near Philadelphia. As we keep going, I want to take us towards the afternoon hour, 4 p.m., when most people will probably be doing their festivities and eating and such. And we see that this storm becomes a bit more vertical. We do see some snowfall start to mix in for southern Pennsylvania into a lot of eastern West Virginia. But really, we stick with northeastern Pennsylvania into areas of kind of central New York here. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine is where the most of this snowfall is occurring. This low is located near, I would say, probably right where the Patriots play, right in between Providence and Boston. There, I would say, is where that low is located on this model. We see that rapidly cold air is descending down on the eastern states over time, and I've mentioned this a couple videos ago. But if this storm was, let's say, just 12 hours behind, let's say it was over the Smoky Mountains now and was going to move up, we would be seeing a much snowier solution than what we're even going to be seeing. We would see a lot of these areas likely seeing snowfall. I know some of them are, but we would see, southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, southern New England, and even New York City getting snowfall. We were that close. A very close call. There's going to be a lot of cold air in the upcoming pattern, and hey, maybe there's going to be another one. By the time we reach Friday afternoon, we're left with just the cold. Really, we have some lake effect snowfall, major lake effect event taking place by the time we reach Friday. As I've mentioned before, I get so many people saying there's no, major snowfall coming. Just say that to the people living along the Great Lakes when they're going to get buried in feet of snowfall. Absolutely major. The storm before it is arguably major for some areas. It just depends. Just because it's not major or even snowing where you live doesn't mean it's not major. I feel like people kind of think in like a kind of localized mindset but the titles are not specifically for your location. Obviously it's for somewhere on the title. I can't really specify that much in the title. I only have so many words I can use, but it usually means that somewhere is receiving what I'm talking about. That's what the video is for. The whole point is the video, not the thumbnail or title. As we take a look at Saturday afternoon, we do see some snow showers across portions of the Midwest into some of the Ohio Valley. And this is a little bit interesting. It's a weaker clipper system. Some snow showers moving through. Definitely could pick up a dusting in these areas if it snows for a while and at a steady pace. Could be a little bit lighter, though. As we look at the Great Lakes, we see that we are at our second day of heavy lake effect snowfall occurring for all of the Great Lakes. This is likely to be a major lake effect event. As we keep going towards Sunday, we see that the lakes are still absolutely puking snow over states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, all of your traditional states, also portions of Canada there as well, seeing these heavy and persistent bands of snowfall that will accumulate very quickly. And, especially when we're talking about 12, 24, 38, 36, 48 hours, this is definitely going to be a major event. As we're looking at Sunday the 1st, we actually get deeper with this cold air as we kind of track the Arctic jet stream here. I mean, we are deep into the east here, seeing really cold temperatures far south and brutally cold up to the north. This is going to be a major Arctic outbreak, and I can't stress that enough. I get so many people that are like, well, it's winter, but you can't really say that when we haven't really seen anything like this in years. I mean, the only exception I can think of is that December of 2022 Arctic event, but this is even longer rain. This is actually like a longer term cool down, and it's a little earlier in the season, so it's a little bit more unusual. But with those exceptions, this is more reminiscent of 2013 or 2014 winters, which are historically, at least in recent memory, very brutal winters. So there is reason to believe that this type of a pattern could become a lot more of a common sight this entire winter, or at least for a lot of the winter. Patterns like the one we're in tend to want to stick around for a while, and even winters like this tend to come in bunches. We don't just see one. So there is some good news not only for this winter, but maybe even some signs to believe that next winter could be a bit similar. That's how 2013 to 2014 and 2014 to 2015 kind of operated. And technically, that's a kind of similarity at this point so far. We're very, very early on, and it's tough to say, but I'm thankful that we're getting this pattern. In my entire career on YouTube here, which is quite young, for YouTube it's pretty old, 5 years, but this is definitely the earliest I've seen this type of Arctic air come in, and the previous one was that late December of 2022 one, so we are talking, a month ahead of schedule with this type of stuff, and really, you're not even guaranteed to get this type of stuff in a winter at all. By the 2nd, we're still brutally cold, now probably the coldest along the East Coast, and we're still seeing brutal lake effect snowfall occurring by the 2nd. Tuesday the 3rd is when this synoptic snowfall kind of moves in, and it kind of combines with the lake effect. We see this snowfall move down from Canada like a clipper system, and it kind of enhances that snowfall. And we get pretty heavy snowfall at times. I want to mention synoptic. What I mean by that is that it's not lake effect snowfall, which is just cold air moving over warm water, producing instability and therefore snowfall. A synoptic snowstorm is an actual low pressure system, like we see in this case, moving down from Canada over the region. So I just wanted to differentiate the source of snowfall, I guess. A few people were a little bit confused by that term yesterday. We see as we move into Wednesday, this actually brings heavy snowfall to Michigan, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, western New York, and even northern West Virginia. Quite heavy. This could definitely bring even more snowfall to some of these areas like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and some of those areas, like especially Cleveland and Erie, Pennsylvania, have already seen tons of lake effect snowfall by this point. So just going to tack onto that. We do see that some of this snowfall actually moves pretty far south, like areas in New York City, Connecticut, kind of central eastern Pennsylvania. But again, this model can be a little bit too far to the south, so please take it with a grain of salt. We do see things getting a little bit milder by this point, a little less cold. It's still going to be rather cold, just not quite as intense, but we get this low that develops over Canada, moves down into the Dakotas, bringing some snowfall up here. And this one kind of pulls the cold air down as it moves towards the east. Watch this play out. It pulls more Arctic air down. It brings more Ohio Valley and Northeast snowfall. And then we get another one right behind it. Dakotas, Midwest, Ohio Valley. It's a little weaker that time. We almost get a coastal system going here around Monday, the 9th of December here. Brutal cold. I mean, we are below freezing throughout the Carolinas and Virginia here. If this could just somehow pull up the coast and move along this jet stream, which is possible, this is reminiscent of 2010, December 2010 blizzard. The way that low just moved straight off the coast. I guess the December 2010 one came more from the Gulf here and rode up a trough just like that. But it is quite reminiscent, to say the least. As we keep going, we see that that cold air moves out. We do get another little snowstorm for the northeast there. And then it looks like we have warm air building again for the west coast, a low over Oklahoma, and likely this would move eastward and develop a cold front and bring more cold air back in. But for now, we do see a major Rocky Mountain and Plains snowstorm at the end of this model run. Now, like we mentioned, it is important to look at both. One will probably be wrong, if not maybe both in certain situations. Let's take a look at this one, which could be more correct. We see that snowfall, this is a little bit of a higher resolution model. That low is right by Philadelphia, so they're in perfect agreement, which is exactly what you like to see once we're moving closer to a snowstorm like this. The snowfall is much more elevation-based, though. We're seeing a lot of mixing issues throughout Ohio. Northern Pennsylvania and southern New York does good, but we see the river valleys in there and areas nearby the Great Lakes just a little too warm. And they end up seeing some mixing, so maybe a little bit more elevation-based is what this European model is calling for. That low tracks a little closer to New England, I would say, than the GFS model. Nevertheless, we end up with very cold temperatures and very heavy lake effect snowfall for days here. So here's the 30th, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, still some lake effect going. We get a little bit of a clipper system there. It's much further north, and we kind of get those similar, look at this, we get these similar little clippers trying to move through. They're further to the north, as I mentioned, but it is interesting to note that they are on both models. So maybe some systems moving through this cold air is a trend. And then look, it's not the 9th of December, but we get a similar trough along the East Coast digging deep into the Carolinas and a low, a very strong one just offshore. If everything could be a little closer to the coast, this could be an interesting situation. The key word here is could be, and it very well could not be. But the setup is there. It's just all a little too far apart, if you will. So we need everything to kind of come together a little bit more. But the two ingredients are there. We just need to mix them together, which may or may not happen. Probably not. That's the way most things go in the weather. But I just want to point out that possibility. It is interesting. I want to try to move back on the GFS model just to show you guys how similar that look is to me. Look at that. They're 3 days off, but that is a very similar look. You cannot mistake that. Look at that. Even the low to over the Midwest here in Canada. Look, I'm going to mark both the lows, and then I'm going to mark the center of the trough here. Watch both models. Again, these are a couple days off. That is uncanny. And also, funny thing. I know I'm so repetitive, guys. I'm probably annoying, but this is the GFS model. Remember, southeast bias. Everything's a little too south. Watch what happens when we switch to the European model. Oh, everything's a little further north. The lows are both equally a little bit further to the north. What do you know? What do you know? Anyway, just thought that was funny. Let's go ahead and take a look at the total precipitation. We do see that the Northwest gets quite a bit, but I'm going to argue that when we look at the anomalies, the entire western states here are going to be below average. And actually a lot of the east as well. There's a couple hot spots in here where we're a little bit above average, perhaps. Couple hot spots, but really going to be below average probably for a majority of the nation. Let's take a look at what happens. And yeah, I mean, we get a couple, like I said, areas with some above average activity, smaller areas mostly near average for most of these. Even the lakes get above average. Notice where the lake effect snowfall is happening, and that's telling how much precipitation is going to come in. But pretty far below normal here for the southeast especially, and then also the northwest. Let's move on to the total snowfall in the GFS model. And now we're starting to see a lot more here in the northeast because of this coming together with that northeast snowfall. We'll take a look in a minute. The west is absolutely moving into potentially a snow drought for a little bit here. Even the Rockies here, I mean, even though they're getting nearly a foot of snowfall, that's a little bit below average. The northern plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes do quite phenomenal, though, as they're all kind of looking at plowable snowfall. Let's go ahead and zoom into the northeast. Now that we're kind of moving into our snowstorm, I want to get a sneak peek at what we're looking at. And we're seeing, 12, 24 inches in here. I think that might be true around the Great Lakes here for these areas. But when we're looking at, central Pennsylvania and areas like that, and areas in between the mountain ranges in New York, I think that this could be a little bit overblown. I don't think we end up seeing 2 feet. But I guess I got to remind myself, this is multiple snowfall events that the GFS model came out with. Let's take a look at the positive snowfall depth change on this one. And yeah, this is a little bit more realistic. Again, we're still looking at a foot, 2, 3, 4 feet there near like the Tug Hill in New York. We're looking at areas near Erie, Pennsylvania, and Buffalo, New York. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet. That is realistic. So that's going to get the check mark, the official direct weather check mark, as being realistic. And then, look, we're getting more like 4 to 6 inches across a lot of Pennsylvania, maybe upwards of 10 in some higher elevation regions. And then we get the river valleys here with just a few inches, whereas we get like 6 to maybe 12 inches here across the Adirondacks and Catskills. Green Mountains, same thing. White Mountains. I think the Green and White Mountains, as well as the Adirondacks and Catskills, we could be pushing a foot, maybe a little bit more, but most lower elevation areas would be receiving a little bit less in most instances. Again, a lot of this not coming from our new snowstorm. This is just the first snowstorm here, so keep that in mind. We're seeing 6 to 10 across these mountain ranges, like I mentioned. Central Maine as well, it's kind of hilly in there. And then mostly looking at a dusting, if not a few inches in those lower elevation areas. Maybe a couple areas seeing plowable snowfall in lower elevations, but pretty elevation based. As we move into the GFS model, this is the total snowfall first. We'll move into the kind of positive snowfall depth in a minute. Let's take a look at the Great Lakes real quickly. I've been getting so many comments about showing all of Michigan here. It on my screen it shows it, but I have it like kind of cropped on the video, so that's why I've not thought to do this until I saw the comments. But for the lake effect snowfall, we are seeing astronomical amounts throughout a lot of the Great Lakes, even for Canada here, throughout a lot of these areas in here. So, I mean, Michigan, we're saying, I mean, I can zoom in on a couple of these states. I just want to point out how crazy this is. Let's see if we can get Michigan on screen here. Do we even have a Michigan? Oh, I'm looking at cities, my bad. Bear with me, guys. Let's take a look at Michigan here. Hopefully this isn't cropped out, but for the upper peninsula, I'm seeing, 50, 60 inches across some of these areas along the lakes. I'm seeing 30 to 40 inches here across some of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Let's take a look at Ohio real quickly. I'll take a look at northeast Ohio. That's kind of a zoom we can do here. But look at this. I mean, across areas just to the east of Cleveland, areas near Erie, areas south of Buffalo, we are seeing 30, 40, 50, 60 inches in here as well. Very huge amounts. And lastly, we'll look at New York real quickly. If we can find it. There we go. And what we see is that also areas here near Watertown and stuff, we do see, again, I'm not getting any like markers here, but likely, 30, 40, 50, 60 inches in there as well. So we are talking in terms of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet, as I mentioned. Very huge amounts. Now, for the positive total snowfall depth, let's go ahead and move into the northeast. We see that a lot of the Ohio Valley is like a dusting to maybe a couple of inches through the model run. I think we should just look at our first snowstorm here and kind of break it down individually, but this is what we see. Again, a dusting, if not an inch or two for some of these areas across Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, southern Pennsylvania. I think that we're getting a lot of mixing issues, and I'm feeling a little doubtful that we see much in the way of accumulation for these areas. When we look at the northeast here, we see, mostly 2 to 6 inches across a lot of the blues here. So 2 to 6 inches. Your purples are the 6 to 10. This is lake effect right here, so we're going to ignore this for a minute. We already kind of broke that down. But for the Adirondacks and Catskills, kind of in between them here, we get 6 to 10 in the purples. The Berkshires up through the southern Green Mountains. The White Mountains and other mountainous areas of New Hampshire. And then central Maine there, all seeing kind of like 6, 7, 8 inches mostly, but probably up to 10 for some mountaintop locations throughout this storm. When we look at the entire model run, we get about double that amount for a lot of these areas. So keep that in mind. Let's take a look at the temperature pattern. And again, we're warmer here until tomorrow night. Here's 10 p.m. Thanksgiving tomorrow. We start to move in with the cold, and this is drastic. We see the greens, which is pretty major, 10 to 15 degrees below normal, but we start to move in with some of these purplish blues, which is 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and that's where we reach truly extreme levels of below normal temperatures. We do warm up for a period here around the 5th, 6th, 7th, but we get a major cool down afterwards around the 7th and beyond. The one thing that stays true is the warm out west, and this is almost always going to force cold into the east, as we've been seeing repetitively. So if you're looking for something to blame for this cold moving into the east time after time, it's this warm air out west. That is the driving factor. As we keep going, we just keep that cold air along the east coast, and it looks like we have more on the way towards the end of the model run after a brief warm up maybe around the midway point of the month. So it looks like we're once again kind of moving up with some warmth as this cold is just swinging in back towards the east. So it looks like we're kind of doing a revolving door here. We're stuck in this pattern. The European model, and we've seen disagreement between these on the air for a little bit now. We get more extreme cold air, as you can see, over the short range. We instantly rebound with another major Arctic blast, just like the GFS, but we get another cool down actually moved in around the 11th, 12th, 13th for the eastern seaboard. When we look at the kind of tail end of this model run, I mean, it is truly remarkable. This is 10 days. This is between the 2nd of December and the 12th. Very far above normal temperatures out west. Very far below normal temperatures here in the east. Truly, this is a cold in the east, warm in the west pattern, and it's been a long time since I could say that. It's been a long, long time. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We're going to continue to break everything down day by day, so be sure to subscribe for those daily weather videos. You can even hit the bell icon for notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.